Wait, I have to ask myself, would Eric tell the story if it was me that did it?
Yes, he would.
He would. Okay, all right. So then I'll tell it. Sorry, Eric.
Today on this episode of The Story, TGIF and Born to Shine Christian Toastmasters, we're interviewing Douglas and Linda, who are going to share their contest journey with us.
And we're going to learn a lot about their experiences. We're going to learn a lot about what they think is the value of a contest. And we're going to learn some tips about competing if you ever want to join a Toastmasters competition.
All right, so stay tuned. Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of The Story.
Yeah, The Story.
TGIF and
Born to Shine Christian Toastmasters.
I am your host, Joe.
And I'm Paul.
And today we are talking about
The
contests.
contests. Yes.
contest.
Yes.
And so we have 2 amazing contestants with us today.
Exactly, yeah.
I feel like we're a game show. We've got the cards.
We got the cards.
All right. And so, Paul, would you like to introduce one of our guests today?
Well, yeah, today we are very lucky to have Douglas in the studio. He is a very, very old friend of mine. I've known him for, maybe 20 years now.
20 years or so?
Oh,
Maybe 20
nice.
years, yeah. And it's just really great to have Doug here. So welcome, Doug. It's great to have you.
All right, it's good to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Sure, no worries, yeah.
Wonderful to have you here. And then Douglas, he is with, are you with TGIF or Born to Shine?
Both.
Both. Dang.
But
Dual members.
he started in?
Born to Shine.
Yeah.
That's right. Nice. And then our second contestant on today's game show. Sorry, I'll stop at the game show. Is Linda Cook. Yes. And Linda is our current VPE, our Vice President of Education in TGIF. And she's a dear member who keeps us on track and hitting goals.
Yeah.
And I just want to say right here, right now, as of, I think, 2 weeks ago or so, because of Linda, TGIF hit DCP 10 already.
Wow.
So nicely done, Linda.
Congratulations.
Wow, thanks everyone.
And so to be a powerhouse contestant and a VPE.
Powerhouse
amazing.
VP.
Powerhouse VP, bring it together.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us, both of you. I really appreciate it.
And so the first question we always ask all our guests is just what was your introduction to Toastmasters? How did you get to know about TGIF and Born to Shine, and why did you decide to join? So maybe we'll go with Linda first, yeah?
Okay, I think it's in 2019. And a friend of mine, Howard, he invited me to TGIF. And the first time I've been there, I was so shocked with the vibe. And the people there are so friendly. So at that moment, I decided I would join, definitely.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, I knew nothing about Toastmasters, had no interest in joining Toastmasters. But I had 2 friends, Paul and his amazing wife, Queenie.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, they're spending all this time with Toastmasters. And I'm meeting all of them. I'm saying this is a great group of people.
Yeah.
So I really joined in order to make friends, to meet new people, to connect with them. And then I just had a lot of fun. I didn't come in super dedicated. I got to be a great speaker. That came later. I really came to meet people.
Yeah. Well, I actually remember, I mean, as I said, I knew Doug long before I joined Toastmasters, and Doug was already a great speaker. And I remember when I asked you, hey, why did you join? You said, just make friends.
I mean, it's true, though, because so my introduction to Douglas was through Grace Baptist Church.
Sure.
And Douglas used to be the presider.
Yeah.
And he would come up there like so smooth.
Yeah, exactly.
Introducing, making people feel welcome, amazing, just the way of Douglas style. And it's continued on in Toastmasters, that smoothness.
There you go.
And so that's your introduction to Toastmasters. And so this episode, of course, we're focusing on our
contests.
The contests. Now, why did we pick, Paul, these 2 people for the contests?
Well, why did you pick them? Number one, we picked Linda because last year she did an incredible job competing in the English International Speech Contest in Taiwan, and not being a native English speaker, I think that must be very challenging. And number 2, we asked Doug, because Doug's just been competing forever since he joined.
Yes,
I think it's
it's
like
true.
since 2017 you've been competing. Yeah. So since 2017 you've been competing on and off, and then also on stage and also online. We went online. So that's why we've chosen,
That's right.
asked these 2 people to come, because we actually have a lot of people who compete. So we have to really be selective of who we ask.
It's true. We're TGIF
Yeah.
and Born to Shine, for those of you who are still learning about our clubs. I wouldn't necessarily say we're competitive, like we're aggressive, but
I
we
am.
Just Paul.
It is
Yeah,
Paul.
it's Paul.
Okay, we're not going to mince words. Paul is aggressive.
Paul.
But we love you, Paul.
I love you too.
But TGIF and Born to Shine, we do use contests to grow.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think
that's how we motivate people.
That's how we motivate people. And so we do have a lot of people who compete. And, you know, Douglas and Linda, I think they've done so well in the past.
Sure,
and I
they
can't
have,
wait to hear more about your experience. And we have all these questions to ask you. Just pretend it's a table topics contest.
Exactly.
Yes.
And considering this year is the Table Topics contest.
It's perfect. It works so well. It's a practice round. Just practice. And so, okay, so Linda Cup, why compete in the Toastmasters contest? What's the value?
Okay. I think last turn, our VP, Lila, she encouraged me. And she is good to persuade people.
Yes.
she's really
And
good.
she said, yeah, Linda, you can do it. And also she pointed out which specific speech I can do for the context.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
wow.
So she gave me a lot of motivated and let me know you can grow through this journal. So that's why I compete because her. So I think sometimes we need the environment, the people who will push you a little bit to let you to go forward. I think that is really key point.
And last year was the first time you competed, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So both in English and Chinese, you had not competed before.
No.
Okay.
That's amazing. And you know, for those of you who are not familiar with Toastmasters contests, you go on this journey from your club contests into an area. Area, it's still just a couple of other small clubs. It's kind of small. And then you go to division, and then you're like semifinal districts. So now you're looking at like a national level stage, which she made it to.
Yeah, sure.
And then you get to the finals, which Paul last year also made it to. And so, you know, once you're at semifinals, it's a pretty big room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can believe that I can go that far. So I think it's because all the support from the TGIF and Born to Shine members. Because when I got in, everyone give me support. Like
Right.
Paul, Lester, Doug, Joe, Iris, Javelin, they help me to see my speech draft. So I think it's a really great to complete. I got all the support and I learned a lot from this journal. And I also meet some amazing contestants from other
Really?
clubs.
Yeah, it's true. Well, Douglas, who convinced you to compete? Because you're like, oh, I'm just joining for friends. Paul's forcing me to come. Like, did Paul also force you to compete or did you just choose to compete?
No, nobody forced me. There were no threats. There were no bribes. But I just looked at it as, okay, it's a new challenge. I've never done anything like that. And I'd never gone through that process that I found very valuable of. Normally, you give a speech, you hear an evaluation, and then you move on to the next speech. And maybe you try and remember what they said in the evaluation. But with a contest, you're doing the same speech over and over and really drilling into exactly how you do it. And I found it an amazing process that really helped in becoming a better speaker, to think much more deeply about a speech and get into pauses and body language and things like that. So I looked at it as a chance to be a better speaker and kind of learn more about it.
What was your first contest speech? It was the
First, I think it was the humorous speech. It was the messy room.
Yeah, the messy room. That's
The
right,
messy room.
2017, right?
Yeah.
And that's the year you also entered the evaluation contest and were first.
Valuation,
It was the same year, right?
Maybe.
It was the autumn.
Maybe.
It was the
Yeah,
fall
yeah.
conference. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
and,
that was...
and then in that contest you came third, I think.
That
So-
was third. Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the first contest. So that was the most intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because the contest, when it's your first time, it feels really intense because everything's new to you, I think. Kind of difficult. Yeah, it's so true.
We've all been there, Joe.
Yes. And I think that can, kind of move into some maybe specific
Yeah.
examples.
So can you think of any, or just share with us any specific examples of growth, like some areas that you, both of you, yeah.
Yeah, it's open to both of you.
Yeah, both of you, yeah.
Well, ladies first, right?
Well, after you.
Linda's first.
Okay. I think it's during this I become a better speaker and I keep practice and keep writing and keep thinking. I think it's kind of like have a dialogue with yourself. Yeah. And also I think I got more confidence because I hard to believe that I can go that far. So it's maybe you are better than you think. You are braver than you think. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I grew in a couple ways. Even though I had spoken a lot at work or helping in church or things like that, I grew a lot as a speaker in that in terms of getting more confident. Because when you're on like the district finals and there's a huge audience and the
Right.
other things, a minute of silence and like everybody's staring and it's much more formal. It really is more intense, and going through that really strengthens your confidence when you're going to then normal, average, everyday speeches. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I'm sure Paul also has had this sentiment as well. There's something about when you, especially the final, I think semifinal's also a big deal.
Sure.
So I would never take that away from Linda. That final, though, when you're in this big conference hall, it's like 500 something people. You just look out, 500 people minus a pirate or two is like 1,000 eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think what makes our club special, and you guys can both speak about that, though, is that, since I was president way back when in the day, we've had this philosophy in TGIF, which came out of the contest, that nobody walks alone.
Yes.
And I think that is something that other clubs battle to emulate. Like, we got a contest, we got a district final. You'll see 500 people out there. Even in the semi-final, you'll see a lot of people out there, but you can always look down to a pocket of people, and it's usually about more than 20 people who are either TGIF or Born and Shine members or friends of TGIF and Born and Shine. And you can look down there. If you're feeling nervous, you can just look down into that group of people, that pocket of people sitting in the crowd, and feel like, okay, I'm safe.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Having those supporters. I remember last contest, Linda and Paul, both of you were competing for the international speech contest.
Different rooms.
And you were in different rooms.
Yeah.
And okay, on the one hand, I was glad because then it increased our chances.
Sure.
I'm not calculating too hard here, but I look at Born to Shine wins as also a win.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I was so torn, like, oh, whose room do I go to? And like, oh, do we have friends in Linda's room? Do we have friends in Paul's room? And that support really matters.
It does matter, yeah.
Really, and I like both of the examples that you all shared, and definitely Paul really supports big. So earlier, Paul was mentioning Linda about, okay, not only are you competing for the first time, you're competing for the first time in not your native language. I mean, your English is amazing. No
Thank
one's
you.
going to argue this. But, what were some of the chenges involved in competing in a foreign language?
I think it's Chinglish. Like,
English.
yeah, when I write my speech, I will use the way I speak in Chinese. But sometimes when you translate to the English, for native speaker, they don't know what I'm talking about. So I think the best part for TGIF and Born to Shine is we have a lot of native speaker friends like Pearl, Doug, and Joe. So they will help me to see my draft, see my speech, so help me to improve a lot. I think that's really big support.
I just like to also throw this question back at Joe, because he's competed in Chinese before.
Oh, man. So I have to admit, competing in Chinese, like Linda, I benefited a lot from having native speakers, not Paul and Douglas, more Chinese native speakers, Mandarin native speakers.
We'd love to help you with Chinese speeches, right, Doug?
And
You would not win, though.
You get a lot of laughs.
I think people would find it interesting.
You get a lot of laughs.
But I remember spending lots of time writing and having people tear it apart. Queenie, Paul's wife, was very famous for Joe. 你在说什么? Like,
What are you saying?
what are you saying? And I benefited. I actually felt like I learned a lot of Chinese through the rewriting process. But I also felt more nervous about forgetting something. Because all of a sudden I have this new expression. Like Queenie's like, no, you need to say it this way, not that way. The foreigners say it this way. Native speakers say it that way. And all of a sudden I feel nervous I'm going to forget something. I don't know if Linda, if you felt any kind of nervousness about forgetting an English phrase or anything.
Yes, definitely.
Oh my goodness.
I also have another question for Joe, if you don't mind. I know we're meant to be interviewing you.
Yeah.
you
All right, we'll just go get water.
But and maybe you guys don't know the story, right? But once Joe entered into the table topics contest in Chinese, and he was in the division level, and they asked him about the aging society in Taiwan, but they used, I can't remember the exact phrase they used, but they used a colloquial phrase. They didn't talk about the normal phrase that people use for aging society. They used a colloquial phrase, and Joe just stood there and he had no idea what they had said. How did you feel in that moment?
So I remember because, I'm used to hearing about things being like 老化, right?
Yeah.
Like just getting older.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they said like, 我们社会是一个高龄化社会,
Yeah,
要怎么面对?
This is an English podcast, so basically they used a colloquial way of expressing aging society.
They used this kind of like more difficult phrase.
Yeah.
And I heard, so for a table topics contest, they ask you the question twice.
Yeah.
And I heard it and I was like, okay, I heard society. What was the other phrase? I was like, okay, well, they're going to say it a second time. It's all right. And I sat there and I listened to it again and I still didn't get it. And I was like, well, it's a something society. And I remember Paul knows me well enough that he knew I knew nothing.
Yeah.
And
Be there, Joe. Both be there.
Yeah. And so I remember just stumbling my way through and it was such a humbling experience.
I just want to bounce this question to Doug. When are you joining a Chinese contest?
Oh yeah. When are you getting in?
When I'm back in class and I'm studying again.
So never.
I just got to get rid of this job thing, and then I can dedicate myself.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, and also Paul has competed a lot in Chinese, and you've competed more recently than anybody else in this room.
Yeah. One of my highlights was the evaluation contest. The guy stood up, and I didn't even understand the title of the speech.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this guy saying? And luckily I was number 9 in the evaluation contest. It was an area contest. And luckily I was number 9. And I could actually make up something which basically got me 3rd place out of 12 people. That's like my proudest moment in competing, yeah.
And not just, 11 other foreigners.
No, they're all I was the only foreigner.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And I managed to just get up there and I asked the crowd, like, did you like the speech? And they're all like, yeah. Like, did you think the speech had deep meaning? Yeah. Do you think he's a great speaker? Yeah. I said, great, because I had no idea what he said, but this is how I want to help you. And
you still got 3rd.
I got 3rd place without
Wow.
the speech. Yeah.
That was amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Joe, what's the next question? Yeah.
Moving on to highlights.
Highlights, yeah.
Yeah. So, a question that we often have, because the contest journey is very dramatic.
It is.
And at times.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask both of you, what have been some highlights from your contest journey in Toastmasters, moments that kind of stuck with you? And Douglas, I think out of maybe the 4 of us, you also have some really rich experience, a lot of different contests. Are there any kind of moments that really shine to you?
Well, it's funny. One of the most vivid moments from a contest was not actually in the arena of the contest. It was at the contest in Shannon's hotel room.
Oh, I wondered.
Tainan or Taichung?
Tainan, yeah.
Tainan, and that was, I think, my first contest. And it was this whole big group from Born to Shine TGIF, all going there, maybe 20 people, kind of sharing stories with each other in a hotel room, relaxing, chatting, learning about each other. And I realized then, like, how important the contest and the experience of it and the shared experience among everybody in the club, not just the contestant, how that can like kind of bond people together and build friendships. And like I said, I just still remember learning about people and being incredibly touched by that experience.
I think that's something that Linda hasn't experienced yet.
Yeah.
Actually, when we go away for conferences, right, we always get together at the end of the first day because we're in Taichung, Kaohsiung, and Tainan. And inevitably, Shannon rents a big hotel room. Shannon, you're coming in April. You're coming in April.
Calling you out. Get a room.
And we all get into the room, and then we all just like go around, and we try and actually ask the newer members to share.
Yeah.
And they feel so connected and bonded to the club because of that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not just that there are people there to support you. It's that it's a really meaningful experience together that's shared.
Beautiful. So, Linda, last year was your first time competing, so you don't maybe have as many experiences, but during that journey from club all the way to semifinals, were there any kind of highlights, some big moments for you?
I think I remember one very vivid moment is that every time when I go onto the stage, some member will tell me to adjust my mic because the voice is quite important.
Sure,
If
sure.
the judge cannot hear your voice, they don't know what you are talking about, so they cannot grant your gold. So I think I got Lester and Lila and Iris. They come to me and help me to test the mic. I think it's so touched because they care about me a lot.
Yeah.
And when I got into the stage, I'm so nervous at the beginning. But I see some our member TGIF and Born to Shine member. They nod their head like, yeah, you are good. You are good.
Got this.
Yeah, to got this. I give your support. So I think that is very important to me, especially for the first computer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. I mean, that is absolutely part of our culture. We will never let people walk alone because, you know, and I developed that culture, you know, developed that right from the beginning. It's right in our DNA because I remember going to some contest and then the speaker would be representing the club and they wouldn't have anybody from their club supporting
Which
maybe
is
one
just
person.
so sad.
And so after that, I just said like, okay, every area contest, every division contest, every semi-final, every district final, there's got to be at least 5 or 6 people in the room, if not more. You know, and once again, like even at the area and division contest, like although those are local in Taipei, we always organize a dinner afterwards. So people get together and they get to share in the experience together, and it actually just nourishes the community more. Instead of we went to the contest and everybody goes home. We actually, okay, we're going to have the contest. After the contest, let's go for dinner. And then we get to build the community. And so the contest for me is not just the contest. It's about the community. It's obviously about the personal growth of the person competing. It's obviously about being there to support them, but it's also establishing and building that community.
I totally agree. And I feel like that really fits with what Douglas was sharing
Sure,
as well.
sure.
And something that TGIF and Born to Shine both do is oftentimes right before the contest starts, we get together, we kind of get into a huddle,
Sure.
and we pray for competitors, contestants. And that's always such a really empowering moment. I remember when I was competing having that. Yeah.
I mean, what are your guys' feelings about that? Like the prayer before the contest?
Yeah, I think it's helped me a lot because it's helped me to calm down, less nervous, and someone to hold your hand and pray for you. I think it's very strong feeling.
Yeah, and for me, it's the right reminder before you go on that there's things that are much bigger.
Right.
You know, that there's God, there's the larger world, there's our lives, and that this, though it feels very nerve-wracking and very important in the moment, it's nice to have a reminder that actually it's this friendship, it's this relationship with God, it's this support, it's the love around me that's there no matter what happens there. And to me, that's very calming before I go out to compete.
Okay. Before we move on, and we're just talking about the highlights, right?
Right, that's right.
I'm happy Doug shared the highlight, but I would like to share, you know, maybe you could share your most humorous moment in the speech contest ever. And I believe that was also in 2017 with Eric. Is that age appropriate?
Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, are we allowed? Will Eric forgive me? Wait. I have to ask myself: would Eric tell the story if it was me that did it?
Yes, he would.
He would. Okay, all right. So then I'll tell it. Sorry, Eric.
He's not actually sorry, Eric.
No, so Eric and I are competing in the evaluation contest, and there are an incredible number of other contestants. I'm last. I'm like number 13. Eric's like number 11. And so we go, they give the speech, and what happens after the speaker gives the speech is all the evaluators go to a room, and you cannot leave or you're disqualified, and you'll be called from that room to go up. Well, they brought us to a room where there was no bathroom. And Eric, when he's nervous, really has to pee. And so number 2 go, number 3. And Eric slowly just gets more and more desperate. He's begging with her. You can go with me. You can stand next to me while I pee. Let me go. And they're like, no, you will be disqualified as soon as you leave. He's okay. And so when it was down to about number 8 or 9, he couldn't take it anymore. And he looked around, and there's a giant empty coffee cup.
You're
And so
kidding.
off
This is
he
real?
goes to the corner of the room. I'm trying to watch out for him. And then the lady who's the watching over the room, she's like, "What's going on?" And she's going over there. I said, "You really don't want to go over there. I promise you."
So it definitely was a highlight.
It was, yeah. And so there's an ongoing joke of don't drink a cup of the coffee that's near Eric because it was a coffee cup
Oh, my
that he
gosh.
filled up.
Yeah,
I mean-
he did go and clean it up afterwards. Yeah.
Yes, he did. He did throw away and dispose of in the bathroom
That
the
is
coffee cup. But,
hilarious.
oh,
You know what though? That's like true bonding. Once you go through that, you're like you're members for life. You've been through something
Yeah.
huge.
yeah. And for the record, Eric, I wasn't going to give the story, but Paul made me, okay?
Yeah, Paul really forced his hand there. That's amazing.
Eric, I hope we're still friends.
Wonderful. And actually, so this is what you've described is an experience that you can only have in person. But of course, there were 2 years that we were online, I think. Was it 2 or 3? I can't remember.
I just completed the first year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was 1.5.
1.5.
It was like it went online in the middle.
Oh.
Yeah, 1 year.
So this is Linda, you were in person.
Yeah, in
so
person.
I've only done in person. So this is really for Douglas and Paul.
Sure.
So during the pandemic, we had multiple contest seasons that were online only, right? And so what are some of the differences competing online versus in person? Please don't use the Eric story as your main
Yeah, you don't know if the person's filling a coffee cup. No. The in-person is a lot more fun. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
It's like it is a different discipline doing it on camera. I get a sense from that of like what it must be like to work on TV, where you're just looking at a camera and you are performing to an object
Or doing a podcast.
or doing a podcast.
Hey.
Yeah.
At least we can see each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
In
That's
my
right.
room, there's nobody. You're just talking to this camera and performing as if there's people, but there's not people. So it was interesting to really focus on the art of the speech and the body language and your voice, and you could really concentrate on it because there's no distractions. But I like the distractions and chaos of audience and stages that are a weird shape and mics that don't quite work right and all that. And it had none of that. It just had the pure speech and the pauses and your body language. So it was interesting, but not as exciting to me.
Yeah. For myself, that was the year I competed in both international speech contest and also the table topics contest. Oh. And for the table topics contest, they asked me the question, and I couldn't find the timers, the timer on Zoom.
Oh.
And I had to start speaking, and I couldn't find the timer's screen, and so I was just like speaking without any timing and just trying to like figure out in my head like, am I on time? And I think well, obviously, I wasn't disqualified, so obviously I finished within time. But I think probably I cut a little bit shorter than what I had because I was going for extra security on the timing issue. So that was the first challenge, was finding the timer. But the second thing is, it's that at the end it just feels so hollow. Because like basically the year we competed, we actually did pretty well. Like I managed to win the table topics contest. Doug was third, and then we were first and second in the international speech contest. But you feel a little bit hollow, and it's kind of if you're in the district, then everybody's like, okay, your club's around you. If you win or lose, your club's around you. Go for dinner, they support you, they encourage you. But then oh, well done, Paul, you won, boom, and then the camera's off.
Right.
And it's like, okay, big deal, right? And so you feel a little bit like it's this big anticlimax. But then that said, I mean, that was also one of the classic things that Lester did. And this is we spoke with Lester in the foundation in the first episode, and this is kind of guy Lester is that he immediately like got everybody together, because I think that's the year Kevin won, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's the year Kevin won online, right? And so he got us all together in a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, and then I remember we went for dinner together in the Chinese restaurant, and then. And then Lester pitches up with all the trophies he has accumulated over the years.
Wow.
And
That's so
then he
sweet.
does his own award ceremony with like about 10 of us in the restaurant,
Yes,
right? But that was
exactly.
that was just Lester. Like he said, hey, we got to do dinner. But he actually carried all those trophies, and then he made like a presentation to us. So, in a way, there was that anticlimax, but then because of just the nature of Lester, who's always, and I think we all testify to that, like Lester's always celebrating people.
Yep.
And he made it special for us. But I'm pretty sure if you didn't have a Lester Lynn in your life to actually teach you, to model that, to guide you, I'm pretty sure for most people it's going to be a very hollow experience.
I certainly agree with that.
But for myself, there was a lot of challenges. Like Joe helped me a lot as well, just figuring out the camera, because Joe's had some experience on TV before. Yeah.
I loved watching you from Japan.
Yeah,
when I
you
was
in
stuck
Japan
there.
when I was practicing. Yeah. So that was the main thing, yeah. So we're just going to backtrack a little bit. And we've spoken about Linda and Doug's highlights, but Joe's also competed a lot.
I have.
What are your highlights, Joe, of
Oh
competing?
my gosh. Okay, there are a couple of big moments, and a lot of them for me deals with surrounding the contests, because as much as I love the Taichung clubs, there's always this healthy contest.
Yeah.
It's died down a little bit, but when I
Yes.
first joined TGIF, man, TGIF and some of the Taichung clubs, we were competing really hardcore, like big names, Josh Myers, Dan Watson, all of us were competing together.
Yeah.
And, I remember you and a couple of others, and Carolyn. Please join Carolyn. Anyway, every episode's going to get a mention.
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers. Anyway, but you all would surround me
Yeah.
and like follow me around the venue.
Yeah.
And then when Paul started to compete again, I followed Paul
Yeah.
everywhere. I was like your bodyguard, minus like the earpiece and like sunglasses.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was really, really sweet, those moments. The funny thing is, when you compete and you have a really good story, the story follows you around in strange ways you never would expect.
Exactly.
So the second time I competed, there was a table topics I gave about my old boss, this guy named Otis, that we called him Captain. He'd always say, the break is over.
Yeah.
And someone said, Joe, that table topics is great. You should make a speech out
Yep.
of it. And so I did. And then I won district. And whenever I'm not working hard enough, even people that weren't there that day who have seen the YouTube video, even people in Japan,
Yeah.
Toastmasters in Japan who have seen that video now because it's on the district the district YouTube channel, if I'm not working hard enough, they'll be like, Joe-san, the break is over. And like, really, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I never really expected it. And so even now, years later, it still follows. And I guess this reminds me of the power of a good story. But yeah, I'd say the way that a table topics or an icebreaker, any little speech, someone notices, encourages you to try it, becomes a big thing. And then second, having that kind of bond with people and really using the contest to solidify relationships. Those are my two big ones.
Okay. And so just moving on now,
Yep.
could you both Doug and Linda, just share what are some tips you would give people for competing in a contest, whether it be a club contest, an area contest, a division contest? What are some tips you would like to share with people? Because we are in the contest season now.
That's right.
Yes.
So maybe Douglas, let's start with you.
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing is a lot of the preparation happens year round, which is get on stage a lot. Give a lot of speeches. Because a lot of what makes a contestant successful is you can relax, you can focus, you can do your speech, you cannot be flustered by this much more formal environment. And that comes just by being comfortable on the stage.
Sure.
And so that is one of the ones. And so if you're then prepping for a contest, try and give the speech you're going to give multiple times. Go to different clubs, talk to their VPE, see if they need a speaker, and try and just get the experience on it, because repetition is really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. And the idea of getting in front of other clubs where, at TGIF or Born to Shine, when you're competing in front of your friends, everyone laughs at your jokes.
Sure.
So I can definitely appreciate that. Linda, what about you?
I think that was pick up the content, what you want to share, especially for your personal experience. Because during this journal, you have to practice this speech again and again. So I think it's better to be your own story, your own experience. You will revise and in different ways. So sometimes I think for me, it's like a dialogue to myself. The last version is totally different from the first version. Although the core value is the same, but I think it's great to talk yourself and also practice this speech. And I think practice more is great in front of different people, and you will get different feedback. So
Sure.
you were to revise your speech or something. Yeah.
I-
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
sorry, Tom. No, I was going to say, Linda, I remember when you were doing your speech last year, you did a
Sure.
great job of asking for feedback, incorporating the feedback, but never incorporating it if it made the speech not yours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Always
yeah,
stay
right,
true
right.
to you.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, because you get every advice and conflicting advice, and one says it should be longer, one says that should be shorter. But you did a really nice of like screening out what didn't match with your core value and what you were trying to say.
You're really good to watch feedback, right? Because when I was
Yes.
competing in 2019, like I got to the finals with my speech, which How Can I Help You? And Lester phoned me like 4 days before on the Monday, and I was doing the semi-final on the Saturday, and Lester phones me, says, Paul, can you come to my office? I want to talk to you about your speech. I go to his office today. He says, I hate your beginning. Oh, I've been giving you a speech for 3 months. You only tell me now? And that night, I'll never forget, that night I went home and I just tore my speech up. I threw it on the floor. I went to lie down in bed, and Queen's like, what? I said, I'm not doing this. I went to bed. I went to sleep. And I slept for 2 hours. I woke up. And this is the kind of the thing that we need strong people like Lester to do. I woke up and I think I came out with one of the best beginnings to a speech I've ever given. But it's because somebody was just pretty frank with me. But you do have to be careful when you get the feedback.
Yes.
And I would suggest to
Yes.
mentors, be careful when you give the feedback.
Yes. Careful when. And
Like try to do it a little bit before that.
I remember Paul's last contest season.
Yeah.
You were getting advice, and then it was maybe 48 hours before the contest.
Yeah.
You said, okay, cut off time. I don't no more advice.
No more.
And then day of, I think Lester
Yeah.
still contacted you, said, okay, so about 4 paragraphs of your
Yeah,
speech.
exactly.
I think you're getting too famous for it.
Yeah. I think that's something that which we can all look. But that's the strength of our club, is people are willing to give feedback. And I like what you said, Doug, about Linda. Like always whatever they give you, you got to make it yours.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you'll
Yeah.
get lots of advice, and that's part of the wonderful process of being in a contest. But you have to have that filter of, that advice is what meant well, but it actually won't help me. And it won't make my speech true to me.
Yeah.
And I won't listen to that, but I will listen to that.
And I think with my very first contest speech, I did a speech called "Let It Go," and I did not want to sing.
Let it go.
And everybody's like, "You got to sing Let It Go," and I was so
Frozen.
inexperienced. I did, and me singing.
Oh.
So we're not going to mess the podcast with this. I feel like we'll get
No,
censored
No, I'm not going to sing on this podcast ever.
ever.
Yeah.
Maybe. No, just kidding.
No.
But what I appreciate here that I'm hearing from you all is about, keeping a core that's true to yourself, having a speech that you really want to share, because I think it's easy, and I've fallen into this trap where I get so focused on, well, what do the judges want? What does the audience want?
Sure.
And at some point, I started to lose myself
Sure.
to the judging criteria, when the real goal, to me anyway, is to give a speech, to get used to a bigger audience and grow along the way. The first place is nice, but I can't control judges as much as I try to pay. No, I don't pay the judges. But, you have to try to find meaning out of that. And by telling a story you care about is how you get that, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys find meaning in the actual process of the contest? Have you found a lot of meaning doing that, or just from the speech itself, like actually digging deeper into the story about yourself, and it helps you not only grow as a speaker but grow as a person? Do you actually find that?
I do. I mean, I will still remember forever. Now, this was, an online contest, the Hercules Can't Fly speech.
Sure.
Yes.
And I love that speech. I will probably never write a better speech. And I hope I will, but there's things about it which you get into the art of crafting a speech. Because I think just like a poem or a story or a theater production, acting, a speech can also be like an art form. If you're using the way you're using metaphors, the way you're presenting it, the way you weave ideas together. And the contest for me, that online contest with Hercules Can't Fly, was the chance to like go much more into the craft of creating a speech and the ideas in it, and creating one that I just loved. You know, if other people didn't like it, that's fine.
Right.
I liked it, and sort of getting into that craft.
I actually have the same sentiment as you, because the one I won with, the speech I won with was only idiots jump off trains.
Yeah.
Like my whole goal of that was to just write a speech with a funny title. But the actual speech that really holds strong to my heart even to this day, apart from last year's speech about Queenie's passing away, the one that really, of all my speeches I love the most, is How Can I Help You?
That's a beautiful
I had
one.
so much fun with that speech, and that only got third place, but I absolutely love that speech.
Yeah.
And Linda, what are your thoughts about your speech in terms of just finding meaning and just like going deeper into yourself to actually pull out the meaning and the substance of the speech?
Yes, I think the speech I choose is because that is what I have feeling more in that situation. I talk about like your time zone. Like for me, in my age, maybe everyone's very success, have a family, but not me. But I still find the value in my life. So I think that's the message I want to give to people. For some people, they are lost, just like me or something. So I think I give my speech also tell myself, but also tell the people.
Yeah, no, your speech was really meaningful last year. Like I
Thank
think
you.
it was very meaningful for all of us to listen to that. Even men, right? Like, you told it from a very female perspective, but even for like guys like me, I was like, wow, you know, that those were very interesting perspectives that I'd never thought about.
Yeah, everyone have their time zone.
zone.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Very,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, we ask all of our guests a very similar kind of closing question.
Exactly
And
right,
so, how do you want to grow in TGIF or Born to Shine in the future? Where are you going from here on? This is really great for a VP, because I feel like VPs are always asking me, like, oh, what are your goals? So, Linda, I get to ask you, what's your goal?
Yeah, I think it's inspire people and also empower people, because I have to say this turn I got VP. Why I take this role is because I got so many support from the contest. So I think I was the taker. I learned a lot, so I need to be a giver this time. So that's why I jump into the officer thing. And I think it's great because in this role, I have contact to all the members, so to take the role. So I will know what they want and how to encourage them. Some will want to learn, and some just want to try some new things. So I want to inspire more members to join the office team to be a leader. I think it's good. Yeah.
This is so beautiful to hear, because a couple of weeks ago, we
Right.
had Jenny and Alice on the podcast.
Yes.
And when we asked them how do they want to grow, they were also talking about becoming givers.
Oh.
You know, just a couple of weeks ago we had them on, right?
It's funny that same sentiment is kind of echoed there. Beautiful. Douglas, how about you?
I think for me, I'll focus on the Christian part of TGIF, Christian Toastmasters, which is, I think, you know, Paul, Lester, you, Joe, several others have been incredible role models in how can I take this club and make it a place where Christian values of love are incorporated, where we're not driven by looking good or competing. We're driven by caring for other people and expressing that love and sharing that love and putting it out loud. Because I'm normally a very reserved person. I don't let my feelings go out. I don't express them as well. And I don't think I do as good a job as other people's of letting people know that I care about them, that I worry about them, making them feel welcome, making that community be an example of kind of the Christian love in practice. And so that's the way I want to continue to grow, is be more expressive and make that more of a reality in how I interact with people and with the club.
Well, I mean, I can just say from a personal perspective, like earlier we were talking about nobody walks alone.
Yeah.
And you're one of those people, you know, you say you're not expressive, but when my late wife got cancer, you were one of the main drivers in, because, you know, I mean, you know the type of person I am, like I'm not going to ask for help. And you just like crashed down the doors and you just brought a whole team of people into the house to help bring food when I couldn't be there or to support and even the financial support. So maybe you don't express yourself well, but you certainly in the practical matters of getting stuff done, like you and Iris together were very instrumental in
Iris is amazing.
in creating a group of people that certainly as somebody by myself, I would have faced it, but you just made that journey for her and myself much easier. So thank you for that.
That's good.
Really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, friends, I feel like we've gotten to walk a little bit through your contest journey.
Sure.
And it's just been so nice to be able to share and to kind of, reminisce a little bit.
And so I just want to, one quick question. I just want to encourage all our members to join the next contest. Yeah. Go.
Linda, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go.
What would you say to encourage somebody to go in?
Just give it a try,
Amen.
and you won't regret.
You have nothing to lose. There is no
Exactly.
downside. You have a great experience or you have a pretty good experience. That's it.
That's true. There is no losing. There is only winning because you will win in gains from what you learn in the contest season.
Yes.
Yeah, and so thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. It's been fantastic to just reminisce about some of the good old memories and just to hear your views and perspectives on competing in contests and Toastmasters in general. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Goodbye.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Paul, we've had a really great podcast that actually
Yeah,
I feel
indeed.
like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
could have made it a two-parter, 40 minutes either side, because there's a lot to talk about.
I know. We did actually had a really long conversation there. Yeah.
And so, what would be your final thoughts for wrapping this thing up?
Well, my final thoughts is what they both said at the end. Go compete. There's the way you grow the fastest in Toastmasters, I think, is by competing competitions. You're just forced to grow so quickly.
I absolutely agree with that. I think just diving in, trying it out. If you get the opportunity, doesn't matter the language. You can even compete in Mandarin, even if you don't understand the question.
Yeah, exactly. We've both been there. We've both done that. A lot of people don't want to compete, especially in Taiwan. They don't want to compete because they're afraid of the English level. But Joe and I have competed in Mandarin as well, and we often lose because you don't really understand the table topics question or the evaluation or the speech that we're meant to be evaluating. So don't be afraid. Just go try. It's
Just
the
go
only
do
way.
it.
And the other thing, it helps grow really thick skin
Yes.
because you stand up there, you're looking like a fool, you don't understand what's going on, and you realize nobody cares.
Right? It's so true.
And so it gives you far more confidence as a speaker and a presenter, yeah.
And for me, I think the big takeaway today is also how the contest season it gives, and then you grow and mature, and then you also end up giving back, which is just beautiful to hear.
Exactly, yeah.
And so that calls it for this episode. And I just want to encourage you, do subscribe, check us out, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you find us, subscribe, and also send us a message. Leave a comment. We want to hear from you because Paul and I are also growing in this journey of figuring out this podcast stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, Joe,
we want to remind all of you listening, watching, wherever you are, to remember that we are built on love
and we are always born to shine.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.